On the occasion of Dr. Radhakrishnan's birthday, I thought I would do something to pay a tribute to this great philosopher, statesman of India. I also thought that it would be nice to share some of my views on science, especially learning in science. I would be glad if I can get your feedback on the issues discussed, as they are of great importance in today's world and are very dear to me. To begin with, let me quote the great poet T.S. Eliot. He says, "Where is the life we have lost in living? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information?" From this warning, it is very clear that facts or accumulation of facts does not comprise what we call knowledge. Knowledge is just not facts nor the mere representation of it. It is something more. Similarly, learning is not just reading, but it has a lot to do with grasping, thinking, wondering, and experimenting. For most of us, learning is just reading, or a little more than reading. We read or hear a theory, a law, a hypothesis, an equation, etc., but then make very little effort to understand it. If we find that it is not easy to find out what it means, then we simply leave it with no understanding of it whatsoever. Some of us just plainly memorize it. The point is, what we have just done is collect a fact. Someone has told it, or a book has brought it out. What we have just done, in other words, is collect a fact without testing its correctness, without properly digesting it. What I wish to bring out is that this fact is not knowledge. An accumulation of facts is not an increase in knowledge. Knowledge comes when the fact is processed. When I say processed, I mean grasped, understood, defined, and tested. If a fact is taken up by our minds without questioning and understanding it, then we will fail to turn it into knowledge. At the most, it is information. Talking of science, it is wrong to think of science as a collection of facts, or else it will be just mindless stamp collecting. You and me are privileged to be students of science because science is another name for knowledge. Science is not wrapped with any particular body of facts. It is simple critical thought which admits conclusion only when they are based on science. Pure science, with its passion for truth and human welfare, is one of the noblest pursuits of men. Unfortunately, science students do not understand this, and therefore they do not appreciate it. For them, science is boring, tiring activity which only serves to depress them. For this, the students are not the only ones to blame. In fact, teachers and the whole education system is to blame. For example, teachers will explain how things fall, but not why things fall. Thus, they must remember that it is the why of the things which matter and which attracts the student's mind and not the how. A physics teacher will be a much better teacher when he imbibes in his students the curiosity of knowing the why of every phenomenon, even if he is not very good in physics itself. Most of the students are not interested in knowing anything at all. It's sad, but it's true. This is because of the approach that our system has had throughout. The teachers dictate long, lengthy notes then gave tedious derivations and detailed answers to the how of why, how the things happen. This is what sedates and tires our students. And by the time they come to the why of the things, it is no surprise that they don't care at all. Tell me, what good is the purpose of our so-called knowledge when we claim to know the Lagrangian, the perturbation theory, and the intricacy of differential amplifiers through long derivations, but we don't know the reason why we can walk or why things rotate? Isn't it a shame? It is a mockery of our education system that advocates and adores people with the ability to memorize rather than the people who can think and who do think. I think it is meaningless to know all the complicated things that we get while we are studying for a master's degree, or while we are in the course of our bachelor studies. There is a large number of PhDs, and I won't address them as scholars, as they really are not scholars by any standards. Most of them are weak in the basics of their subjects. When asked why, the common answer one gets is that we know the complicated stuff that we do, but that keeps us out of touch of the basics that we learned years back. Actually, they have never learned the basics then, and they still won't. Our system of education immunes doctoral students from the hazards of not knowing anything except for their research. So we have a problem. Most PhD recipients are not good teachers. This kind of a lack of basic knowledge is a cause of embarrassment during interviews. It is worse for the college or school student. His weakness of basics, instead of making the students introspect on the shortcomings, makes him feel bitter about the subject itself. He blames the subject as it being too difficult. Little does he realize that it is not that he's inept in solving the problems, but it is the perpetual refusal to make organized efforts towards understanding the subject. His indifference towards the subject does not help him in any way, and this leads to his downfall. Famous astronomer, physicist, and the author of the best-selling book Cosmos, Carl Sagan, once said, "To do other than to encourage the wisest use of our abilities is to deny our birthright." I believe that people who are not encouraged to think are thereby unhappy. Understanding the world is a kind of joy, and I find that every time ordinary people understand some aspect of nature that they have never grasped before, for example, why the sky is blue, why the moon is round, what causes the tides, they are delighted. This is a delight, first in the joy of the knowledge itself, and second because it gives some intellectual encouragement. They discover that they are not dumb as they were told before. An enormous number of people have emerged from our educational system convinced that they lack the aptitude to understand the world. As a teacher of science, we are in the envious position of having answers to some of the most profound questions that have ever been asked. I feel proud to be associated with physics and science in general, but most of us aren't. This is really sad, because to do well in science, you got to love it, appreciate it, and practice it. Of course, most of us hate science because of our teachers' attitude, the teaching mechanism, and as I said before, the whole education system. But should this be reason enough to keep our morale and excitement low? I don't think so. We are far more responsible than anybody else. We should try to change our attitudes. Let us try to make the much needed transition from the useless memory way to the thinking way. Ask not what teachers can do, ask what you can do. Let us become inquisitive, curious, and doubting. This will really aid us in practicing science. I wish to say something on what brings about a scientific interest or scientific inquiry in us. In other words, what will make us interested in the why of the things and what will help us in making an effort in this direction. The factors responsible for giving rise to scientific awareness and scientific inquiry are as follows. First is a sense of wonder. Second, the curiosity which is linked with the sense of wonder. Third is the sense of appreciation. And fourth is doubt. Let me explain. Without the sense of wonder, scientific inquiry is almost impossible. For without the sense of wonder, nothing that happens around us will evoke any interest in us. G.K. Chesterton said, "You cannot have a meaning in life without a sense of wonder. Nothing will capture our minds as worthy of understanding. The absence of a sense of wonder leads to the absence of curiosity. Without curiosity, nothing will ever excite us. We also need to appreciate the phenomena occurring around us. It also manages to increase our interest in the phenomena. Doubting nature with regards to the why of the phenomena is always an advantage. It is an important ingredient for increasing our curiosity. It makes us curious enough to find out the truth. Thus, doubt promotes inquiry. It makes us uncertain and all the more interested in the search for the truth. Remember, the mind that questions and questions with a serious intent and purpose and tests and verifies the answer has a dynamic quality about it which enables it to forge ahead in the world of thought and things. Let me give a warning here. When we don't think and don't try to reason out or explain things, we lose the ability to think and reason. This, I believe, is the ultimate catastrophe, our intellectual death. Finally, I must delve on the moral principles which must go hand in hand with learning and acquiring knowledge, because knowledge alone is not enough. It must be tempered with justice, a sense of moral life, and our capacity for love and community. Education aims into making us civilized human beings, conscious of our moral and social responsibilities. Some of you may become teachers or lecturers. It will be your duty to teach the scientific morals along with the science to your students. Science is a boon if it is used in the right way, but when misused, it can become a curse. So mankind's well-being depends on how we make use of this science. It should be clear to everyone that man has suffered when scientific knowledge has been wrongly used for catering to someone's or some nation's petty needs. I will conclude with the hope that we will make radical changes with respect to learning science teaching science, research in science, and scientific awareness. Science is a way of thinking more than it is a body of knowledge. Let us become dedicated members of this scientific enterprise. There are some thoughts. These are some of my thoughts on education, learning, science, etc. I very much wish to share them with you and to all willing ears. I hope that your views will echo with mine in general. Please let me know in the comments section what you feel about science and learning in science. Thank you.